Chapter 11, Grade Champion. Master Zhuang remarked, swift as the wind. Wind echoed, murmuring to himself, swift as the wind, swift as the wind. Turning to me, Master Zhuang stated, Lei Xiang, although you weren't defeated today, you fought far too hard. You haven't harnessed any of your inherent advantages. I replied in surprise, I didn't use my strengths? Master Zhuang nodded, do you recall your first victory in the chief's duel? I inquired, the bout with the one from the fire lineage? Master Zhuang confirmed, yes, that one. Do you remember how you triumphed? I nodded, certainly. I intentionally took a hit from him and then knocked him out of the ring. Are you suggesting? Master Zhuang elaborated, indeed. While I'm uncertain of the battle energy you practice, I've observed your physical defense is exceptional. Not just energy defense, but your bodily resistance is impressive. This might be your unique gift. Since you possess this talent, why not exploit it? Let me impart 3 words to you, steady as a mountain. Speed isn't your forte, but power and defense are. Do you comprehend? I nodded eagerly, feeling enlightened by Master Zhuang's words as if I'd grasped some profound truth. Exiting Master Zhuang's office, Wind and I mulled over his counsel. Just as we left the building, we encountered a group of first-year magic students who chuckled at our disheveled state. Look at those two. They don't belong to any renowned class. Were they struck by lightning magic or scorched by fire magic? They probably made an error and got punished by a teacher. Lifting our heads, Wind whispered to me, this is embarrassing. Let's head back to the dorm. Both of us emitted peculiar cries, startling nearby students, and hurried back to our quarters. After a swift shower and changing into fresh clothes, I felt relieved. Wind told me, Old Lei, I'm worn out. I need to rest. When did I become a Old Lei? Do I look that aged? I nodded in response, farewell. I'm heading back too. Wind grinned, the grand competition begins the day after tomorrow. Do your best. I responded, you too. I hope we face off in the grade finals. Walking back to the dorm, I pondered Master Zhuang's advice, steady as a mountain. How could I embody that, especially leveraging my defensive prowess? Lei Xiang, you're back, greeted a voice. Glancing up, I saw Zishui. I smiled, you've been waiting here? Zishui nodded, why are you so late? You usually return to practice by early afternoon. I inquired with Wind, and he hadn't seen you. I explained, today, our class conducted a test to select participants for the Indofterm competition. Zishui looped her arm through mine, you were chosen, weren't you? Teasingly, I nudged her nose, you have that much faith in me? There are many strong contenders in the academy. Zishui asserted, I just believe in you. You certainly have the skills. I inquired, what about you? Are you participating? Zishui replied, my magic level isn't advanced enough. Zishui is a second-year magic student, primarily practicing water magic. But my sister is competing in the 3rd year. Her light magic is renowned. I chuckled, she's the deputy dean's top disciple. It's expected. Zishui retorted, my sister doesn't participate due to connections. She earned her place with pure skill. If you become the grade champion, will you truly challenge Li Hua? My expression grew stern, absolutely. If I win the grade championship, I'll challenge him. If I can't defeat him, it would undoubtedly affect my future training, especially mentally. Zishui sighed, though you're formidable, Li Hua is. I offered a slight smile and remarked, so, you don't have faith in me either? Zishui quickly shook her head, replying, no, that's not it. I have complete confidence in you. It's just that Li Hua is considered the top fighter in the entire academy. He won't be easy to tackle, and I fear you might get hurt. I assured her, don't worry, my skin is quite thick. Hurting me isn't as easy as one might think. Even if I don't win, nothing will happen to me. Zishui nodded, adding, as long as you assure your safety, that's all I need. After seeing off Zishui, I returned to my dorm, pondering the words of Master Zhuang. 2 days later, the Indofterm graduation ceremony was held. It was the usual spiel about how hard everyone had worked during the term and hopes for even greater progress in the future. Following the ceremony, the head of discipline, Zhang Feng, approached the podium, announcing, "The much-awaited Tiandu Academy's semesterly martial competition will commence shortly. Contestants from each grade should proceed to their respective arenas." Today marked the beginning of the first round. The contest rules were simple: 12 participants would be split into 2 groups, while the other grades with 5 classes had 10 participants split into 2 groups. The top 2 from each group would proceed to the knockout stages, which meant I'd need to compete in 7 matches to claim the championship. Fengwen and I were allocated into separate groups. Glancing over, I realized I didn't recognize many from my group, having been injured since joining the academy and subsequently confined. I hadn't met many. Master Zhuang pulled Fengwen and me aside to give some last-minute advice: "Stay alert. Lei Xiang, you might find it easier to tackle those from the warrior class. But when facing those from the mage class, always be on guard. They tend to use unpredictable spells. And Fengwen, utilize your speed to the fullest. Strike swiftly, ensuring maximum effectiveness. Though I haven't taught many classes, you two are among the most promising first-year students I've seen. Don't let me down." I nodded firmly and headed towards my assigned arena. With the format being round-robin, both groups would participate in 3 matches each today. My first opponent was from the warrior class, an imposing figure standing around 180 centimeters, muscles bursting with raw power. The referee summoned us, declaring, "Mage Warrior Lei Xiang versus Warrior Shi Li. The rules are straightforward: no hitting vital points, no lethal force, no maiming, and no illegal weapons. Leaving the ring or being incapacitated counts as a loss. Of course, one can also surrender. Understood?" I nodded quickly, channeling the energy of the wild god throughout my body. Shi Li's eyes widened in surprise, likely wondering how a mage warrior could possess such immense stature, potentially making him hard to beat. Standing confidently on the platform, I challenged, "Bring it on." Shi Li snorted, questioning, "Aren't you using a weapon?" Lifting my fists, I swung them lightly, replying, "These are the only weapons I need. Choose whatever you'd like." Feeling underestimated, Shi Li's eyes blazed with anger. "All right, you asked for this," he grumbled, grabbing an iron rod and twirling it impressively before warning, "Watch out." Engaging a pure warrior like Shi Li was indeed more straightforward than dealing with magic warrior seniors, where I had to watch out for spells. Despite Shi Li's rugged appearance, he wasn't solely reliant on brute force. With a flick of his rod, he sent a myriad of shadowy rod images in my direction. Thinking to myself, while your moves are impressive, they lack concentrated power, I stood my ground, unflinchingly awaiting the rod's descent. My standstill stance took Shi Li aback. As the shadowy rods were about to connect, he abruptly pulled back, consolidating all into a singular forceful thrust, mimicking a spearman's piercing technique. The rod wasn't sharp, and I braced myself, using the wild god energy to shield my chest and block his advance. Bending upon impact, the rod failed to cause any damage. I smirked, gripping the rod, my hand glowing a pale yellow as I seized his weapon. Positioning it on his shoulder, I pressed down, asking, "Shall we continue?" Trying to resist, Shi Li found the pressure unbearable. Sweat forming on his brow, he seemed somewhat resentful. Intensifying my force, I made him kneel and declared, "If you don't want to be embarrassed further, surrender now." Aware he couldn't match my strength and unable to leverage his specialties, Shi Li felt humiliated but conceded, "All right, I give up." Tossing the rod back, I exited the ring. As I left, Shi Li shouted, "The next time we meet, it won't be this easy for you." I glanced back, sneering, "If you manage to advance that far, I'll be waiting." Exiting the arena, Master Zhuang approached, commenting, "Well done." He didn't stand a chance. Grinning, I responded, "Thanks to your guidance." Over the next few days, I breezed through 3 matches, maintaining an undefeated streak. Today was the final group match. Regardless of the outcome, I'd secure a top 4 spot. My opponent was a mage class student who, according to Master Zhuang, also had a perfect record. Today's battle would determine the top position in our group. In the other group, Fengwen, with his elusive agility, dominated his matches and secured the top spot, followed by a warrior. As I stepped onto the arena, I found my opponent was distinctly dressed as a mage, and to my surprise, she was a woman. My opponent was wrapped entirely in a thick red magical robe, her cloak pulled low over her head, obscuring her face from my view. The only visible part of her was a luminous white right hand, clutching a long magic wand. Wrapped around the wand was a serpent, carved from an unknown material. The top end of the wand ended with the serpent's open mouth, holding a massive magical crystal within. One glance, and it was evident this was a wand of the highest quality. Teacher Zhuang had mentioned that this girl wielded formidable power. None of my previous opponents could withstand the overwhelming force of her magic. Out of respect for her gender, I gave her a slight nod. In response, the female mage lifted her wand. As soon as the referee announced the beginning of the match, she unleashed a stream of fireballs at me. Her spellcasting speed was breathtaking. Frantically, I conjured several ice spikes to neutralize some of her attacks. By the time the remaining fireballs approached, I punched them out of the air. While I was busy dealing with her fireballs, she swayed her wand, whispering incantations. Clearly, she intended to chain cast her spells, not allowing me any chance to get close. I wasn't in a rush to advance. Instead, I wanted to see what she had up her sleeve. Recent battles had been too easy, failing to provide a challenge. Easy victories were unsatisfying. Only through relentless challenges could I truly improve. By now, her spell was complete. She drew a beautiful red hexagram in the air with her wand. Based on my reading in the Academy's library, this had to be a spell of at least level 5, undoubtedly a tough one to counter. And then, I heard her crystal-clear voice chanting, "O dormant god of fire, release your energy. Awaken. Guardian of the gods, descend, fire dragon." No, this wasn't a level 5 spell, it was level 6. My heart raced. Though I boasted a strong defense, I wasn't equipped to contend with such potent magic. A resonating dragon's roar emanated from the red hexagram, and a relatively small fire dragon flew out, positioning itself between the female mage and me. I channeled the wild god technique throughout my body, containing the demonic resolve, and calmly observed the fiery beast. The slight tremor of her wand indicated that sustaining this spell wasn't easy for the female mage. She waved the wand, urging the summoned fire dragon to attack. The dragon's slightest movement blasted intense heat towards me. Such formidable flames. Fitting for one of the most potent mid-tier spells. I immediately released my fighting spirit, hurling a punch at the dragon. The pale yellow aura from the wild god technique struck the dragon's head, causing it to shrink slightly. However, it remained largely unchanged, continuing its charge towards me. Instead of feeling alarmed, I was excited. My fighting spirit could actually neutralize the magic's intensity, a valuable discovery. Later, I'd learned that this was common knowledge, unknown only to someone like me who had skipped many classes. I continued to unleash wave after wave of fighting spirit, slowing the dragon's progress. The female mage kept empowering the dragon with her flame magic from behind. Such a stalemate wasn't sustainable. I could already smell the scorching odor surrounding me. Even if I could withstand the dragon's attack, my clothes and hair wouldn't. Despite any physical resilience, the social embarrassment would be unbearable. Battling mages was always such a hassle. Secretly, I wrapped the demonic resolve within the wild god's aura, combining 10% of the latter with 3% of the former. Due to the perfect envelopment by my wild god technique, no abnormalities were visible from the outside. Gathering my strength, my clothes billowed as I released a beam of pure yellow light towards the dragon. The dragon retaliated by spewing flames, trying to deflect my assault. However, the inclusion of the dark element enhanced the might of my wild god's fighting spirit. The dragon's flames couldn't deter it, and my attack hit the target. The dragon, bombarded by the ferocious combination of fighting spirit and dark element, disintegrated and vanished. The recoil of the energy sent shockwaves through the female mage's body. She was formidable. I couldn't afford to let her cast another spell. With a thunderous yell, storm and fury, I slammed my fist onto the ground. Recognizing my technique, the female mage quickly shielded herself and swiftly moved to her right. My strike was directed at the arena's center. The resultant force covered half of it. Even though she was swift, she wouldn't dare approach me, a magical warrior. The violent gusts and debris shattered her hastily erected shield, and her cloak was blown away by the wind. She was breathtakingly beautiful. I hadn't expected such beauty behind the robes. Clearly infuriated by my actions, her brows furrowed and her eyes flashed with anger. Regardless of her gender, she was my opponent. I wasn't one to show mercy. Seizing the opportunity, I dashed forward and threw a punch her way. But my target vanished. It was an illusion technique. Impressive. Even in her desperate state, she managed to evade my instinctive attacks. Her melodic voice echoed, "You're quite uncouth. Don't you know how to treat a lady?" Turning around, I found her behind me. I retorted coldly, "I am a warrior. I don't discriminate between genders. If you're an opponent, I will show no mercy." My opponent scoffed, moving at an incredibly swift pace, utilizing speed and mirror image techniques. I couldn't discern which of the multiple figures was the real her. I stood still at the center of the arena. Suddenly, a pain surged on my back as I was hit by a fireball. A burnt spot instantly appeared on my clothing. Rage bubbled up from within me. I despised anyone who damaged my clothes. With a furious shout, I unleashed a series of powerful punches, sending gales resembling torrential rains sweeping across the entire platform. I spared no one, not even myself. The arena was soon filled with smoke, debris, and intense combat energy. Murderous intent radiated from me. Without paying heed to direction, I indiscriminately unleashed my powerful combat energy in all directions. While the female mage's magic was strong, it paled in comparison to my overwhelming combat power. Under my relentless onslaught, she soon felt the strain. Every strike I made was intensely powerful. This was my first time using my combat energy in such a manner. Surprisingly, the energy from the Wild God technique replenished without pause. Initially, I thought I could only sustain the energy for a short duration. Now, I realized I could keep punching non-stop. The feeling was exhilarating. "Stop it at once, young man. If you cause any more damage to this arena, you'll have to pay for the repairs," a voice admonished. Hearing this, I froze momentarily. The female mage had curled up in a corner, shielding herself. I had wreaked havoc in the arena, and the spectators had retreated dozens of meters away, some even covered in dust and debris. After stopping, I quickly became the target of criticism. Almost everyone believed that I shouldn't have treated a girl in such a manner, labeling me a disgrace to men. But what did they know? To me, victory was paramount. I approached the female mage. "Are you all right?" She slowly removed the cloak shielding her, retracting her protective barrier. With lingering fear in her eyes, she said, "You're terrifying. Why would you attack like that? Look, my robe." A small tear in her robe revealed a hint of her cleavage. My face turned beet red, and I hastily looked away. The sound of her crying reached my ears. Girls truly were more fragile. I said calmly, "Do you wish to continue?" She vehemently shook her head, her voice tinged with a sob. "Who would want to fight someone like you who doesn't know how to show mercy?" She then adjusted her robe and left the arena. She thought to herself, "Thank goodness it was only my robe that was damaged. What would have happened if this brute disfigured me?" In this dramatic manner, I clinched the title of the group's champion, advancing to the top 4. Instead of receiving praise from my teacher, I was scolded, with my friend Zishua also siding with her. My teacher said, "How could you behave like this? Even if it's a match, you shouldn't have gone so hard on her. What if you had seriously injured her? And damaging a girl's clothes is extremely impolite." I protested, "But you wanted me to win. I had to defeat her to get a favorable position. I never intended to damage her clothes." She replied, "Even if you're aiming for the championship, you shouldn't disregard your image. Many teachers have been complaining about your behavior, saying I've raised a wild student. Zixue chimed in, you were wrong today. How could you be so aggressive towards Bingbing? She's my good friend. I was speechless. Was I aggressive? If I hadn't been, she probably would have roasted me with her fire magic. It was ironic she was named Bingbing, Ice, when her magic was of the fire element. She was indeed attractive, but not particularly alluring to me. From that day onwards, I earned the nickname Beauty Slayer, implying I wouldn't hold back even against beautiful opponents. The name also hinted at having won over Zixue's heart. The semi-final opponent was from Fenwen's group. Initially, I intended to go easy on him, but he arrogantly proclaimed himself the embodiment of justice, vowing to defeat me on behalf of the school's beauties. To my astonishment, many girls cheered him on. Annoyed, I knocked him out in a few moves. In the finals, I faced the female mage again. Though I planned to be gentler, she conceded without even lifting a finger, making me the enemy of nearly every male student. In the shadow of the arena, nearly every student was shouting, shameless. Give back the championship title. Regardless of their jeers, I was determined to challenge Liwa and had no intention of relinquishing my title. I silently returned to my dormitory. Thankfully, the overpowering strength I demonstrated ensured none of the first-year students dared to challenge me physically. Liwa, I vowed to reclaim my honor from you, rage consumed my heart. Returning to the dorm, Fengyun calmly mentioned, Zixue came looking for you. Judging by his demeanor, he was clearly blaming me. The power of a beauty indeed. What did I do wrong? Was it just because I used extreme measures to win? Aren't women considered opponents? If they choose to ignore me, I'd appreciate the peace. Swiftly exiting the dormitory building, I spotted Zixue standing by the entrance, peering in. As she saw me, she approached. I remarked, what a surprise, you're here to see me. Anxiously, Zixue responded, you've angered many. Bingbing is both beautiful and provocative. The entire first-year class now sees you as an enemy, and this sentiment is spreading to other grades. Be very careful when you're out. A glint of murderous intent flashed in my eyes. My temper was never one of patience. Having been provoked this way, my patience had worn thin. In a cold voice, I retorted, anyone seeking trouble with me is courting death. Zixue gripped my hand, pleading, what are you thinking? It's frightening. Can't you be less aggressive? I snorted, I won't trouble those who don't trouble me. If they want to come at me, they'll pay the price. Releasing my hand, Zixue, with teary eyes, said, why are you like this? I initially wanted to persuade you to apologize to Bingbing, and then vouch for you to resolve this situation. But now, you're only making it worse. My rage peaked. Coldly, I remarked, you clearly don't understand me. Do I seem like someone who'd bow down to others? Humph. I turned and headed back to my dormitory. This Bingbing had not only isolated me from everyone, but now had even Zixue at odds with me. When the chance arises, she'll understand my might. Back in my room, I lay on my bed. Thinking of Zixue's tender demeanor, my heart softened. I decided to see her tomorrow. If I take the initiative, surely everything can return to normal. No, I can't go like this, it'd be too humiliating. I can't go. These conflicting thoughts consumed me, and I eventually decided to face Liwa before meeting Zixue. The next morning, I went straight to the academy's administrative office to challenge Liwa. Upon seeing me, Director Zhang didn't comment much. After all, he's a teacher. However, he curiously noted, this year, 2 individuals wish to challenge the 5th-year champion, Liwa. You must know, Liwa's prowess is remarkable. His insinuation was that I was overestimating my abilities. Surprised, I asked, who else challenges him? Director Zhang replied, the other is the 3rd-year champion, Xian. I was taken aback. Xian? Why her? Anxiously, I inquired, how will the challenges proceed? After a moment's thought, Director Zhang stated, according to the Academy's past regulations, if champions from lower grades wish to challenge the same senior grade champion, they must first compete amongst themselves. Meaning, you and Xian must face off first. Exiting the office, my emotions surged. Why did Xian wish to challenge Li Hua? Wasn't he always pursuing her? If they competed, what could be the outcome? Would Li Hua harm Xian? Surely not. Did Zixue influence her elder sister's decision, intending to hinder my match with Li Hua? That must be it. Since it was the end of the term, students had the day off. Most were packing their belongings in their dorms, preparing to go home for the holidays. Zixue would likely be at home. Exiting the academy, I headed straight for the Duke's mansion. I had to seek clarity from Zixue. I'd put in so much effort to face off against Li Hua, and nothing should stand in my way. Upon reaching the mansion, I sent a servant to announce my arrival. Moments later, Zixue appeared, her face a shade paler, causing a twinge of pain in my heart. In a subdued voice, she said, "Why are you here?" Sighing, I responded, "Won't you invite me in to talk?" After a long, penetrating gaze, Zixue replied, "Come with me." I followed her into the mansion.